So mark your calendars. The 12th of March is now the new date for the budget speech. And let's hope there will be no last minute cancellations the next time. This is, of course, after yesterday's unprecedented postponements, and the reactions have been coming thick and fast from political parties. But we thought perhaps not to give them yet another chance for political posturing, but to try and make sense of what this moment means. I've invited Duma Gqubule, who is an independent economist, to join us this morning to help us wade through this. As always, a pleasure to have you on the show. First impressions on this, did you see it coming?
Well, when I saw the News 24 article in the morning, I'd taken the day off. It was obvious that this would happen, yeah.
What made it obvious to you?
It was immediate. It was obvious to me that the budget would be cancelled, and I started talking about that on the radio, on social media, that the budget will be cancelled. Yeah.
All right, explain to me how you got there. I mean, we know the reasons, at least what we've been told, but what was it on? What was the writing on the wall that you saw?
Well, because it was just obvious to me that they had not agreed on this 2% VAT increase. And, the ANC, as per tradition, we're hearing, they come and announce it in the morning, and it's okay when it's ANC ministers alone, but now there's all other ministers, and it was just obvious to me that it would be cancelled, and it's a good thing, yeah. I think it's a very good thing to cancel, and I'm very happy, yeah. In fact, I've been complaining for more than a decade about the incompetence of this Treasury, and I hope South Africans will start listening to me, because for 16 years, our GDP growth 1.1% a year. Our GDP per capita is lower than it was in 2007. We've had 17 years of declining average living standards, and the forecast is for another 2 years of this pathetic economic performance. And on top of that, emerging and developing countries over the same period, 155 of them, 4.4% without much effort. Emerging and developing Asia, 6.3% without much effort. For a country that is not at war, our situation is so unique. And it's due to this incompetent macroeconomic policies by Treasury and the Reserve Bank here.
All right, we'll come to the substance of it in just a moment, but let's talk about how it was meant to unfold. I understand that even some of the senior ANC leaders, including, for example, the Deputy Finance Minister from the ANC, David Masondo, in fact, neither one of the deputies of Inokotongwana, as I understand it, knew about the specific number of 2%. Now, if you think about, as you said earlier, they need the numbers of all their coalition partners to pass something like this. How was it not negotiated?
Well, this is and the second thing I want to say is that he has too much power, and I've been telling South Africans that for years. They've got more power than President Ramaphosa. They cancel everything he says. They've got more power than the ministers. For example, you have a RET minister, Malusi Gigaba. The first thing he does is to raise VAT in 2018. So it doesn't matter which faction of the ANC you are in, you do what the officials say. And this is a fundamental, and the ministers, puppets, officials who determine. So this is an organization has become too powerful, and that is how it's been rolling for the past 15 years. And they thought they're going to come this government in national unity. They'll do as they've been doing for the past 15 years without consequence. And I think they've got a bloody punch on the nose and serves them right here.
All right, so looking then at the budget speech that was leaked or spread around to journalists certainly, and people like yourself, you would have seen it. Was it a good budget? Would it have been good one?
No, all their budgets are terrible. Now, there's something that I find strange. In 2018, we had the VAT increase by Malusi Gigaba, and then from 2020, I read every single budget review. They were traumatized. The VAT increase never raised any revenue. Now, let me read quickly, Bongani, from the 2024 budget. 12 months, they say, raising revenue in a constrained economic environment, significant risks. And this is informed by the negative feedback effects of tax increases and taxes. Since this is the 2023 budget, they say, since the 2020 budget, government has avoided further increases in tax rates. Research, including by the United Nations, two papers by the United Nations, the tax increases impede economic activity and the net.
Oh, we're losing you there slightly. The line not clear there, Duma. But you're saying that research shows tax increases just continue
the economy,
impede growth. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so they impede growth and result in lower tax revenues. So this is from Treasury. Every single budget for the past 5 years, that is what they've been saying. And then jiggy, now they're increasing VAT. What about evidence-based policy, which is in their own budget documents? What happened to evidence-based policy? Yeah. So basically, from an economic point of view, this was an idiotic policy that they're trying to do because their own research shows that they will not raise 180 billion rand, that they will, because you can't tax the people in a collapsed economy. It's just going to have counterproductive effects. So this is the incompetence. I hope South Africans can start listening to me. I've been a lone voice in South Africa talking about this madness of this institution that is incompetent, that has got too much power.
So what would you propose? What would you, because I mean, from Treasury's point of view, the idea, as I understand it, was to prioritize structural reforms, taking into account the pressures on the fiscus.
Well, the structural reforms, for those of us who read this budget, they've been talking about them for 13 years. They first appeared in the 2012 budget. Since then, our GDP growth on average has been less than 1%. And now, so what they don't understand is that the structural reforms, if you add them all together, they're spare change in the context of an 8 trillion rand economy. I've said that a million times. They make no difference. And the austerity policies cancel the limited effect of these structural reforms. So what I'm trying to say is that they're just dishing out what they've been doing for the past 16 years without consequence, and it serves them right. Yeah.
So as they return to the drawing board, what advice would you give?
They must cancel this thing. They must cancel the 2%. I think the other opposition parties must not compromise on that, number one. Number two, the objective of the economic policy, the budget and monetary policy, is there's no universe, Bongani, in which we have a high debt ratio. And I heard Fikile Mbalula says we've exhausted our borrowing requirements. They must come and I will present to them that is just uninformed Treasury propaganda. There is no universe in which we've got a high debt ratio. The world average is 109%, is 93%. Advanced economies is 110%. And I can go on and on with the numbers. Emerging.
So are you saying, for example, that 2008, when we were at about 20% and lauded for our strong balance sheet, are you saying that situation even then wasn't ideal?
No, what I'm trying to say is that the 1.1% growth over the debt is measured as a percentage of GDP. Because of the incompetence of this Treasury, we have a debt to GDP, it's a ratio. So because the bottom part of the ratio is not growing, obviously a higher debt ratio is a side order. It's a symptom of an economy that doesn't grow. So I'm saying, I was with the finance minister in November, and he says, no, yeah, we have a GDP growth, but you agree with me. I've been saying that for a decade. We don't have a debt problem. We have a GDP growth problem.
But Duma, the economy is not. Hold on, but the economy is not going to suddenly grow in the way we would like by the 12th of March. So what do they do now?
Then they must do they must present a growth budget for the first time in 16 years.
What would that look like? What would a growth budget look like?
It includes investing in our people and our infrastructure. Our people have got immediate needs in terms of consumption spending. They're suffering, and we must expand the social relief of distress grant into the universal basic income. The second thing they must increase infrastructure investment. This is it's got high multipliers. When you spend $1 billion, in fact, we did within the organization that I work for, the Social Policy Initiative, we got a Brazilian economist to model the effect of social security spending in South Africa. When you spend R1 billion on social security in South Africa, the economy grows by 1.6 times in the first year. So it creates the resources to pay for itself. So once you have a multiplier of 1.6, issues of affordability shouldn't even enter the equation. So we must invest in social security, infrastructure, and we must invest in the public service that is collapsing. Those are the three priorities I think we should do. And we must forget about this debt ratio and this fear-mongering by National Treasury that has not delivered results. And that's what I would say. Yeah.
All right, independent economist Duma Gqubule, always a pleasure to have you on the show. He's a maverick, but every now and again we need those voices that, as he says, are not often listened to.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.